I'm getting an early morning start on May 29th, Memorial Weekend. It's a little bit overcast still. And besides the fact that this is all slender oats and Italian thistle on the left, what's standing out to me is there was a nice little bit of poppy here when I left, still fighting. There's not even a hint of it. I said I would go try and figure out what the green parts are. Let's go. Oh my God, it's exactly as I feared. It's the same as over there where I filmed yesterday. That's yellow star thistle. Just an absurd, frightening amount of yellow star thistle. I mean, it's not all the green isn't yellow star thistle. You know, some of the Italian thistle's still green. This is the mustard's green at the base, but here's a nice parting gift from the goats, just eroding the hell out of this. And this bit of green is actually Italian thistle and a little bit of yellow star in there. And then of course you have some generations of the grasses that are still coming through, some young ones, despite the fact that the majority of them have already turned dry. So as I said, this is May 29th, and the goats left here in mid-April, and we're already at this stage. Keep in mind, I've been hiking these hills on a conscious level. I call it conscious level, where I actually started paying attention to the plants for 5 years. I've been watching this process here for 5 years and watching it be a complete and utter failure of a program. I mean, it's not just that things aren't slowly or eventually improving, because they're not. Look at this behind me as I kneel down. The goats just left, and this was one of the last spots that they hit. That's the problem, and the solution to that problem just finished being here. Add to that they were here for 6 months. 6 months, hitting the same spots repeatedly. They'd graze over here, they'd graze over there, they'd come back, graze a spot again. Just kind of like almost aimlessly wandering the hills. Can I prove that it was aimless wandering versus having some sort of a strategy? Not completely sure, other than that they would move from a spot that they had grazed for a while to another spot. If there was a strategy, well, I'm proving that the strategy is a bad one. It's an absolute ocean of Italian thistle and milk thistle and annual grasses. This is the end result of a habitat restoration program that we pay for. This is the end result. The only non-native that I think I see a decrease in is the mustard. And I would take the mustard over all these thistles any day. I think the wildlife would too. Unless the goal of this grazing program was to spread Italian thistle, then this was a failure. And this is going to be fire fuel shortly. Imagine for a moment that you're a native animal that lives here, dealing with this non-native crap that the grazing program continues to spread. I can feel these things through my pants. It doesn't matter if the wildlife are tougher than we are. That's not the point. They're not supposed to be dealing with these plants. They did not evolve to have to deal with these plants. Oh, what a treat. A little variety from the other thistles. Here we have red star thistle. I have yet to see the red flowers, but you can see it's a little bit different than the other thistles, and it's not pleasant. It's so nice of the goat grazing programs to drag various types of invasive plants into new zones, while absolutely failing to promote the native plants. Here we go. Definitely an increase in this particular species this year. Feel free to point out a native at any time, annual or perennial. There used to be coyote brush here. The goats killed it. Look what came up in its place. All right, coming around the ridge. Where are the poppies? I showed the footage of the poppies growing wild in the neighborhood, growing wild in backyards. The ones in the yard that I got a close-up of, those aren't tended to. Those are naturally occurring. They aren't watered, other than the fact that I pulled weeds so that they could have some breathing room. Those are just poppies doing their thing. Look at the state of poppies out here. Let's take a moment and look at what I'm next to. Stop me when you see a native plant. I named this Milk Thistle Ridge a few years ago, and it just gets worse and worse and worse. On my left, we have Italian thistle and annual grasses dominating, and on the right, we have milk thistle and annual grasses dominating. Wow, what an improvement. Look at this. I found one poppy so far. Guess where it is? Out on the paved trail, where it has breathing room from these. Poppies are tough. Poppies are tough plants. They can handle disturbed areas, but they can't handle too much goat grazing and being drowned in an ocean of the very plants that the goats keep promoting. Okay, for reference, this is the tree where the dead goat was left laying for a few days, and the other goats actually trampled it in order to get up and consume the lower branches of this tree. This is where they were fenced in, eating lupin, poppies, and Menzies fiddleneck. So, following the goats actually killing the native annuals, what has sprung up? And look at the size of this. I mean, we're talking about a month, tops. This is just a sea of non-native plants immediately following the grazing program. So whether you are arguing that it's vegetation management, fire fuel abatement, or habitat improvement, all of those are false. Then we have the you got to break some eggs to make an omelet argument. You know, things have to get worse before they get better. When do they get better? Because I'm sitting where I saw native plants, and now nothing but invasives. For the argument of, well, you gotta sacrifice some of the natives during the process and eventually it'll get better. You know, you gotta clear out all of the bad and some of the good in order to make way for the eventual good. No, I've been watching this for too long. And at the end of that break a few eggs process, the only thing resulting is a lack of the natives and an increase in the invasives. Here we go. I'm on a new hill and we've got more yellow star thistle growing to join the ranks of the other invasives that are already here and dominating. I don't see any natives. Just a fresh supply of invasives to come and support the army of invasives that's already here. If you were hired at a company to come in and solve a problem, whatever that problem might be, I'm pretty sure that the department that you were hired into would have some sort of a timeline or some sort of goals and expectations by which to measure if you are, in fact, solving that problem. And that's my issue with the goat grazing program. There is no timeline. There is no rubric. There are no goals based upon a set amount of time by which to measure if this is working or not. They're just allowed to perpetually do this. Year after year after year, it gets worse. And who's saying anything about it except for me? I don't even see anyone that slightly resembles a person of authority coming out and checking what the status of the native plants versus the invasive plants are. Look, it's possible that I'm wrong. Let's acknowledge the possibility that I am, in fact, wrong. Wouldn't it be nice if there was some sort of official documentation coming from the other side to counter my arguments? I have visual evidence over an extensive period of time supporting my arguments. The other side is based in faith. Hey, we say it works. Other people told us it works. What would be so bad about having the people in charge of this program actually come out and conduct some studies? This is publicly funded. Why can't you include documentation that it's working? How is it not a prerequisite that a program that could potentially hurt nature and cost taxpayers money include some sort of study or follow-through that indicates that it was a good investment? Sure, you'll see animal agriculture publish articles claiming that it's good. That's like an oil tycoon claiming that burning fossil fuels is making the earth healthier. Get a team of ecologists out here and conduct your studies year after year, document them, have them on public record, and have them peer-reviewed. And then compare that to the next year and compare it to the next year. None of this faith-based horse crap. If you're being official, if indeed you do want to help the habitat as is the claim. If you want to actually reduce the amount of combustible fire fuel plants, wouldn't you want to include some follow-up, some observations, some means by which you can measure progress, some indicators to show you whether or not you're seeing improvement? The fact that no one comes out here and takes a survey of the plant species year after year, or the wildlife species year after year, shows that they don't actually give a shit if it's improving. I don't expect you to have the answer. This is just for fun. This is just hypothetical to get the brain going. How long? Throw out a number. Think about it. Throw out a number. How long should this program or any program be allowed to go on before checking whether or not it's working? Especially since it is funded by the public, funded by tax dollars, and is potentially hurting nature in the meantime. How long would you give it before you said, okay, maybe this isn't working? Do you think it's responsible not to have a timeline of that sort? Is it responsible to just say, go for it? Okay, you see that over there? That's where I have been down in the creek planting some natives. And this is the hillside that I look up at and say, what are those green patches? So let's answer that question. As I feared, it's yellow star thistle, mustard, and vetch. This is going to be an absolute nightmare to walk through when this thing starts sprouting its spines. God, look at how thick they are. Going from an infestation of milk thistle and Italian thistle to yellow star thistle. This is what the goats bring to the table. Just a myriad of different invasives that they bring from the last place that they finished grazing invasive plants. How the hell can you expect it not to be a problem when these goats get trucked from location of invasive plants to the next location of invasive plants? There's the vetch I was talking about, the deep purple, the deep green. Yeah. This is the hill. This is where I sat watching the goats come through and graze as we actually had some poppies and lupin. Yep. Whether it's trampled or actually eaten. Look at it. Look at it. In late May. What the hell was accomplished? This is vegetation management. This is biofuel reduction. I mean, if you think about how these invasives respond, it's almost like they're celebrating that the goats were here. Remember, the goats came through and we suffered through their destruction because it's ultimately supposed to clear out some space for the natives, right? Wow, I'm actually not going to be able to walk through here. I'm now walking on the hill that has a decent amount of coyote brush, and I watched the goats come through here and hurt the coyote brush, strip it, break off branches, turn healthy vegetation into fire fuel, all to do what? To fight against these plants. I mean, look at the state of the invasives surrounding the coyote brush. The coyote brush was damaged with the excuse of managing the invasives. You didn't do much at all to these invasives. Maybe you made them laugh. But if the goats were brought back through here again now, even though they just left, let's say that you bring them back through now, guess what the goats are going to do? They're going to strip the beautiful green off the natives. Yeah, they'll eventually eat some of the invasives, but first things first, damaging the natives, while not accomplishing the goal. Just a little reminder of what went down here. But hey, at least they got rid of the thistle. The goats grazed this particular hill at least 3 times that I watched and filmed. You know, they would go way over there and graze, they'd go over here and graze, and they'd come back here and graze. And look where we are. A month after they left. This coyote brush sacrificed to fight against this. Look at this. A whole new ocean of poison hemlock. How do I know it's poison hemlock? Well, the most obvious sign is the reddish markings on the stalk. God, look at it all. This is worse than ever. Was the goal for the goats to cause poison hemlock to take over? See all those ferny leaves down there? That's all poison hemlock. Don't get me wrong, all the invasive grasses and other problems like the Italian thistle are still here too. We just have some gigantic stalks of poison hemlock taking over its own zone. Continues all the way along here. Slender oats, vetch, Italian thistle, poison hemlock, poison hemlock. Wow, we have a little bit of, ow. Damn, these things hurt. A little bit of coyote brush surviving the goats. Now, if you listen to Audubon, the coyote brush is what we have to get rid of with grazing. And after all that spending with the goats, all the tax dollars spending on the goat program, what are we left? A month after they leave, we're left with the need to go and mow with machines. I started making a video about this a month and a half ago, and then I just got overwhelmed with other projects. But I'm almost glad that I didn't finish it, because you see now what it looks like only a month after the goats have left. And the point of the video I was working on was to say, hey, don't let an article came out about California's super bloom this year following the rains. And I was just like, man, it's only a matter of time before Audubon or animal agriculture supporters come out and say that it's thanks to the grazing programs that we saw that super bloom. Nope. It's thanks to the grazing programs that that super bloom was really short. So final thought as I sit amongst these invasive plants. Remember, the goats just left, and they grazed here for 6 months this time. And they've tried grazing here in the summer, they've grazed here in the winter, they've grazed here in the spring, they've grazed here in the fall, and sometimes they graze almost all of those seasons consecutively. And we are still left with this. I mention this because some people are going to say, well, we're just going to have to graze more. Or other people will say, oh, they're grazing at the wrong time of the year. Guess what? I already see the goat grazing programs, other places on the highway on the way down here. They don't stop. They don't stop. It's just a matter of when the contracts move from one location to the next. It doesn't have anything to do with ecological knowledge or targeted timing. If it did, maybe we would have seen some hint of progress by now. This is the state of the invasive plants and the fire fuel, the biofuel, vegetation management right after the goats finished being here. And they got multiple shots. They got to take multiple shots at these hills. They graze it down, weeds bounce back. Graze it down, weeds bounce back up. And I'm not talking about the goats leaving. I'm talking about them just going over the hill and then coming back a few days later. It's not working. I guess I should point this out. When I say the goats were here for 6 consecutive months, I'm not talking following a few years off. I'm talking about a couple of months off. The goats are here, they destroy the hillside, they leave for a little bit, and then they're back. Repeat, 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 repeat. Apparently repeat until the end of days. No one gives a shit that it's not working. You see the destructive path that this will lead to. The argument that we need the goats there more. Look, we're just not grazing enough. We need the goats out there again. Basically, you're going to give the hillside to animal agriculture in a never-ending process of eating the very plants that they are promoting. That's not a solution. That's an animal agriculture feed solution. It's not a habitat solution.